At the family barbecue, my uncle leaned in and hissed, "Don't mention your promotion, your cousin's fragile." Then they rolled out a sheet cake iced with, "World is yours, our golden child," and shoved a stack of paper plates into my hands like I was the help. My cousin smirked over a red Solo cup. At least I didn't waste my 20s chasing some desk job nobody cares about. When they called for the group photo, I stepped up. "Quick update," I said, calm. "I just accepted a 6-figure role in London. Full relocation. And no, you're not on my invite list." The grill popped. Forks stalled midair. The silence? Chef's kiss. My name's Eric, and I'm 29. And if there's one harsh truth I've learned about family reunions, it's that they're rarely about reconnecting. They're elaborate performances. Everyone shows up in their best costumes, rehearsing their most charming smiles, ready to applaud whichever cousin or in-law is currently soaking up the family's attention. This summer, it was Brent. Again. It had been over a year since I'd seen most of them. Not because I'd been avoiding them, though, if I'm honest, the thought had crossed my mind more than once. No, I'd been working. Really working. For the last 4 years, I'd been clawing my way up one of the most cutthroat consulting firms in the city. Long nights, weekends gone, relationships strained to breaking point. But it finally paid off. Just 2 weeks before the reunion, I got the call. A senior strategy role. In the London office. Full relocation, a 6-figure salary, and an apartment in Kensington already lined up. It was the kind of opportunity you only ever dream about. But I hadn't told anyone yet. I wanted to wait, not out of modesty, but pure survival instinct. I knew exactly how my family operated. News like that, it would land with a sickening thud. My accomplishments always did. Meanwhile, Brent could land a temp job at the mall, and they'd throw him a parade with balloons and a banner proclaiming, "Our brightest star." Still, I held onto a sliver of hope. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe they'd finally see I wasn't that quiet, second-place version of myself anymore. I showed up in a sharp, tailored shirt, brought a beautiful bottle of wine, even helped Grandma out of the car. I was trying, genuinely trying. That effort lasted a grand total of 10 minutes. I'd barely set down the wine before Uncle Dean cornered me near the patio. He was smiling, but it had that tight, awkward pull, the kind that screamed, "I'm about to say something offensive, but I'll pretend I'm not." He leaned in close, like we were co-conspirators, and muttered, "Hey Eric, do me a favor, maybe don't mention anything big today. Brent's been having a rough patch again. He's still, figuring things out." I just blinked, didn't say a word. Dean chuckled, as if I was being humble. Sure. I just know you've been doing well, and we don't want to overshadow anything. You understand." I didn't. Not really. But I nodded anyway, because if I didn't, I'd be painted as the one making a scene. That's how it always went. I'd seen Brent scream at a waiter once over ketchup, and Mom said he was just passionate. I'd forgotten to RSVP to Easter dinner one year, and she called me cold. I spent the next few hours quietly biting my tongue as Brent made the rounds like a washed-up politician. He had that smug air about him again. Faux humility mixed with pure entitlement. He talked loudly about a startup idea he was developing, which sounded suspiciously like reselling vintage sneakers on eBay. Every time someone asked what I'd been up to, I'd get halfway through still at the firm before they pivoted seamlessly to Brent's brand plans, or how he might be scouted by a sports agency, because a friend's cousin once filmed him dunking. I didn't know whether to laugh or just lie down right there on the grass. Then came dinner. We moved into the backyard where a long table had been set up under twinkling string lights. It was beautiful, I'll give them that, but as the trays of ribs and potato salad came out, Aunt Lisa emerged from the kitchen with a massive cake. I froze. It was white and gold, with the words, "You'll change the world one day," hyped across the top in dramatic, curly font. People clapped. They actually clapped. I watched Brent pretend to look bashful, wiping his hands on a napkin like some celebrity in a press room. "Wow," he laughed. "You guys didn't have to do this." I was still staring when someone tapped my shoulder. It was my mom, holding out a stack of paper plates. "Here, honey, can you start passing these out?" I just looked at her. Why me? She blinked like the question confused her. You're good at that kind of thing. Good at handing out disposable cutlery. So I did it, because saying no would have meant another lecture later about how I make everything about me. I smiled, handed out the plates, and tried not to clench my jaw. But then Brent saw me, and of course he had something to say. Look at Eric. Always the helper. He grinned, biting into a piece of cake. At least I didn't waste my 20s chasing a desk job no one cares about. A few people laughed. Not loudly, but enough. My hand tightened around the plate I was holding. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was tired. Tired in a way that felt older than me. I had spent years building something, fighting imposter syndrome, working insane hours, moving city to city, trying to prove I was more than a backup plan. And here I was, standing in the grass with sugar on my shirt, being mocked by a man-child who once tried to turn his graduation cap into a TikTok brand. That's when it hit me. I decided right then and there that I'd let the rest of the evening play out. I smiled when I needed to, helped clean up empty cans, even took a few solo pictures for people who asked. But I waited, because I knew it was coming. The group photo. Every reunion, it was tradition. One big photo of the entire family on the deck. It was Mom's favorite part. She'd post it on Facebook with a caption like, "My heart in one frame," even though half the people in it hadn't spoken in months. So, when Grandma stood up and called for everyone to gather, I made sure to be right in the middle of it. They shuffled around, finding their places. Dean and Lisa at the front, Brent near the center, of course, arm draped around his mom like he just won the Nobel Peace Prize for loafing. The photographer, one of my younger cousins with a DSLR and a YouTube channel, started adjusting the lens. That's when I raised my voice, just enough to cut through the chatter. Actually, I said, stepping forward. Before we take this, I wanted to share something. A few heads turned. Brent looked annoyed. Mom gave me the look, the one that said, "You better not ruin my precious photo." But I just smiled. I just accepted a new position. Senior Strategy Consultant. London office. Full relocation. 6 figures. Silence. The real kind. The kind where even the bugs seemed to stop chirping. I scanned the group. Brent's smile faltered. My mother's eyebrows twitched, like she was trying to find a reason to be upset, but couldn't yet. Uncle Dean cleared his throat. I held up my hand. Oh, and before anyone asks, no. You're not on my invite list for anything. Not the going away party, not the contact list, not even Christmas cards. Then I stepped off the deck. And the photographer, bless her, still took the picture. That was the moment the mask cracked. The silence didn't end with the click of the camera. It lingered, long and awkward, clinging to the air like humidity before a thunderstorm. I didn't need to look back to know their expressions. They were burned into my memory. Brent, stunned, trying a half laugh, pretending I was joking. My mom's eyes wide with that mix of embarrassment and disbelief. Aunt Lisa's hand frozen mid-clap, as if she were trying to decide if this was still part of the performance or not. I didn't storm off. I didn't run. That wasn't how I wanted to play this. I walked slowly across the yard, weaving between lawn chairs and folding tables, past half-eaten ribs and plastic cups of punch. I set my plate down neatly on the buffet table, grabbed my coat from the back of a chair, and nodded a polite goodbye to Grandma. She blinked at me, confused, but didn't say anything. Maybe she sensed it. Whatever this moment was, it wasn't a tantrum. It was a conclusion. By the time I got to my car, my hands were shaking. Not from nerves, but from the raw adrenaline you feel when you finally speak the truth you've rehearsed 100 times in the mirror, but never had the guts to say aloud. I sat there for a second, staring at the dashboard, heart pounding in my chest like I just sprinted a mile. And then my phone lit up. Brent texted, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" I ignored it. Mom texted, "Can we talk?" Ignored. Aunt Lisa texted, "Was that really necessary?" Ignored. I turned the phone off. The drive home was a blur. Windows down, wind in my hair, and a hollow ache in my stomach that I couldn't tell was sadness or relief. Maybe both. There's a strange grief in realizing that your family doesn't know you. Not really. They know the version of you that fits into their story. The one who hands out plates, who pays quietly, who doesn't steal the spotlight from the real stars of the family. And when you break that mold, even for a moment, it's like you've broken some unspoken pact. The days that followed were eerily quiet. I expected fallout, maybe a phone call, maybe a confrontation, but instead, I got the silent treatment. Only this time, I welcomed it. No texts, no guilt-laced check-ins, just digital crickets. Until the group photo went up. It was Mom, of course. She uploaded it to Facebook 3 days later. Captioned, "So grateful for our beautiful family. One of our best reunions yet." I clicked on it just to see. There they were. 30-some relatives crammed onto the deck, smiling through the tension. Brent dead center, my mom right beside him. A few cousins flashing peace signs. And in the corner, barely noticeable unless you knew to look, was the empty space where I'd been standing before I stepped down. Like a ghost had left the frame. But the real kicker was the comments. "Where's Eric? Did he not make it this year? He's probably off doing something amazing. That kid's always been the smart one." I didn't comment. I didn't like the photo. But I did smile. Because, as it turned out, I didn't need to say anything. The silence was loud enough. Still, I wasn't done. A clean exit is good, but sometimes to truly move on, you have to take back more than just your presence. You have to reclaim the power they took for granted. The next morning, I sent an email. Not to my family, but to the reunion committee. Yes, we had one. Aunt Rhonda and Uncle Dean were in charge of organizing the annual event, reserving the park, planning the potluck schedule, even coordinating who brought chairs. And for the last 4 years, I'd been the silent donor who helped cover the rental deposit and catered side dishes. Because Brent was still figuring things out, and Lisa was trying to get her Etsy shop off the ground. My message was short. "Hi Rhonda, just wanted to let you know I won't be contributing to the reunion fund next year, or any year going forward. I wish you all the best, but it's time for someone else to step up. Regards, Eric." Felt clean. Not bitter, just clear. The response came within hours. Rhonda texted, "Is everything okay? Did something happen? We've always appreciated your generosity." I didn't respond, but the real fun began the following week. My mom finally called. Twice. I let it ring both times. Then she left a voicemail. Tight, brittle, with that formal tone she always used when she knew she was one breath away from yelling. "Hi honey, it's Mom. I just wanted to talk about what happened." It really caught everyone off guard. "Brent feels terrible. He said he was just joking, and I don't think it was fair to bring up your job like that in front of everyone. It made things a little tense, but let's not make a big thing out of it. Okay? We're family. Call me." I didn't. Not yet. But I did start packing. The move to London was happening fast. My visa was approved. The firm had booked my flight, and my new manager had already invited me out for a welcome dinner the week I arrived. I told a few friends, colleagues, even my old college roommate who I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone was thrilled for me. Everyone except the people who'd spent years pretending I was invisible. A few days later, Brent texted again. "Mom says you're not answering her. You can be mad at me, but don't make it about everyone else." I stared at it. The lack of awareness was breathtaking, like I just stubbed my toe on a monument to entitlement. I typed, deleted, retyped. Finally, I wrote, "I'm not mad. I'm just done playing along." Sent. Blocked. That was the last message I sent before the goodbye party invites went out. Carefully curated list. Old friends, a few mentors, my boss, my neighbor who always shoveled my side of the sidewalk in winter. People who showed up. People who mattered. My family wasn't on it. But someone tried to RSVP anyway. That's where things get really interesting. The RSVP came through the event site I'd used, just a casual little portal where guests could confirm attendance, note dietary restrictions, things like that. I'd purposely left it off social media, keeping it private and invite only. But still, someone managed to find the link. The name listed under attending made my stomach tighten for a second before I let out a low, dry laugh. Lisa H. 2 guests. Aunt Lisa. I didn't have to guess who the second was. It was bold. I'll give her that. No message, no apology, not even a pretense of checking in to see if the invitation was intended for her. Just a quiet assumption that she could insert herself wherever attention might gather. A little voice in my head wondered how she'd even gotten the link. Maybe a friend of a friend, maybe Mom, maybe Brent himself. Still convinced I was bluffing. I hovered over the Remove Guest button. My cursor sat there, unmoving. And then, for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself a moment of real, unfiltered pettiness. I didn't delete the RSVP. I changed it. Lisa H. became weightless. No message, no alert, just a quiet status update. She'd find out the night of, standing outside a venue she thought she was entitled to enter, holding a clutch purse and wearing her best fake smile, only to be told her name wasn't on the list. It wasn't about cruelty. It was about clarity. The days leading up to the party were peaceful, which, in my family, is always the calm before the storm. I spent most of it packing. Books first. Always books first. Then clothes, photos, and finally the little things I knew I wouldn't need in London, but couldn't bear to throw away. My grandfather's old watch. A letter from a college professor who believed in me before I did. A shoebox filled with rejection letters I kept as fuel. Then, the night before the party, Mom called again. Not a voicemail this time. She showed up. I heard the knock around 9:15 p.m. sharp. Measured, like someone who didn't want to startle, but very much wanted to be heard. I looked through the peephole, and there she was, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. I opened the door slowly. "Eric," she said, her tone formal, like she'd practiced this in the car. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside silently. She walked in, pausing just inside the doorway like she expected me to offer tea. I didn't. She looked around my living room, eyes scanning the packed boxes and the half-rolled-up rug. "You're really going?" I nodded. "Wasn't kidding." She sighed and perched herself on the edge of my couch like she might float back off it at any second. "I'm not here to fight. I want to understand what's going on." I raised an eyebrow. "Now?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I know things haven't always been fair, but you have to understand, Eric. Families are complicated. You're strong. You've always been strong. Brent, well, he needed the support more." I tilted my head. "Support? You mean the cake? The fake speeches? The part where you handed me paper plates like I was the caterer? That wasn't personal." "It always is," I said quietly. She looked genuinely taken aback. "Eric, you're successful. You've got this amazing job. You're going abroad. You don't need the spotlight the way Brent does." That was the moment it really hit me. The way she framed it. As if success negated the need for dignity. As if achieving something made me less worthy of recognition because I didn't need it like the others. Like the measure of love was about weakness. Whoever sank lowest got the life preserver. "So what?" I asked. Was I supposed to keep shrinking so Brent could feel taller? Mom didn't answer. She stared at the floor, her hands clasped in her lap like she was praying for a script to read from. "I've been invisible for years," I continued. "Every reunion, every dinner, every time someone asked what I was up to. You redirected the conversation because God forbid I made your golden boy feel inadequate." "You're twisting this," she said, eyes flashing now. "You're being cruel." I took a slow breath. "No, Mom, I'm just being honest. For once." She stood up suddenly, and for a second I thought she was going to storm out, but instead she walked over to one of my boxes and placed her hand on it like it belonged to her. "You didn't tell me you were moving until now, because I knew what you'd do. You'd make it about you or about Brent, or about how I was hurting the family. We are your family." I met her gaze steady. "Then you should have acted like it." There was a long pause, the kind that stretched so far it became permanent. She finally nodded slowly. "You're angry. I'm done." She didn't say goodbye. She just left. The party the next day was incredible. It was held at a rooftop lounge downtown. Nothing too flashy, but elegant in that low-key, confident way. Jazz playing softly in the background. A skyline view behind the bar. waiters serving bite-sized appetizers on tiny ceramic spoons. Everyone who showed up wanted to be there. No obligation, no performance, just people who knew me, supported me, and celebrated the fact that I was finally stepping into my own life. People gave little speeches, some funny, some heartfelt. One of my former bosses told a story about how I once rewrote an entire proposal over a weekend after a client changed their mind last minute. My old roommate made everyone laugh with a tale about me sleepwalking into the kitchen and making cereal in silence. They all cheered when I raised my glass and toasted to new beginnings. That's when the real surprise happened. The venue manager came over, leaned in close and said, "There's someone downstairs trying to get in. She says she's your aunt." I smiled. Of course she came. I set my glass down gently and nodded to the venue manager. "Thanks," I said. "Just tell her she's not on the list, and don't let her up." He hesitated, like he expected me to change my mind. Maybe he dealt with enough awkward family drama in his line of work to recognize the look in my eyes. Calm, resolute, but hiding 100 unspoken storms. After a second, he gave a respectful nod and walked off. I turned back to the rooftop where laughter rippled across the crowd like a soft breeze. Someone had just started a story about how I used to rehearse fake interviews in my college dorm mirror with a toothbrush as a mic. I laughed along, but part of me had already shifted, just slightly, into something heavier. I knew this was the right decision, but even when you walk away from people who've hurt you, there's still a weight to cutting the final thread. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. One new message. "Mom, she said you humiliated her." People were staring. "What exactly are you trying to prove, Eric?" I stared at it. The words didn't sting. Not anymore. They felt small, like a tug on a rope that no longer connected us. Because I wasn't trying to prove anything. I already had. I didn't reply. The rest of the night flowed like a dream. Old friends danced to 80s music under string lights. My team from work toasted to conquering the Brits. One of my mentors pulled me aside and said, "They're lucky to have you over there. Don't forget that." I won't lie. I teared up a little. Because it wasn't just the celebration that moved me. It was the fact that for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to earn a seat at the table. I was wanted, seen, respected. Around midnight, I slipped away from the group and stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking out over the city that had shaped me. The streets below buzzed with life, cars, conversations, late-night food trucks, the neon hum of a city that never slept. I thought about all the years I'd spent here, working late, eating takeout at my desk, dragging myself home through snowstorms and heat waves. And now it was ending, but it didn't feel like loss. Felt like release. The next morning, I woke up to a string of unread messages. Brent, Aunt Lisa, even Uncle Dean had chimed in. Brent, nice job turning a goodbye party into your personal revenge fantasy. Real mature. Lisa, I hope London appreciates your drama because the rest of us are exhausted. Dean, you've made your point, but family is family. Don't burn the bridge completely. That one made me laugh out loud. The bridge was already ash. They just hadn't noticed they were standing in smoke. But what hit hardest was the voicemail from Grandma. She didn't text, never had. She'd always left voicemails like it was still 2006. Her voice cracked a little as she said, "Hi, sweetheart. I heard some things, and I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. I know it's been hard, and I'm sorry I didn't say that sooner. I don't understand everything that happened, but I understand this. When people show you they don't see you, you're allowed to walk away. I love you, and I hope London gives you what you've always deserved." That was the only message I saved. My flight was on a Tuesday. I didn't tell anyone the exact time, didn't post a story or tweet some dramatic goodbye. I just packed my last bag, locked the apartment door behind me, and stepped into the next chapter. The plane took off just after sunset. I watched the skyline shrink beneath the clouds, my old life growing smaller with every mile. And when the flight attendant brought me a drink and asked what I was heading to London for, I smiled. "A promotion," I said. "But more than that, peace." A week later, I was settling into my new flat. Sleek little place in South Kensington, the kind of neighborhood where everyone has opinions about cheese and umbrellas. I loved it. One afternoon, after unpacking the last of my books, I decided to walk through Hyde Park. The air smelled different here, like rain and roasted chestnuts. I sat on a bench with a coffee and pulled out my phone, half thinking I'd check in with someone back home. But then I changed my mind. Instead, I opened a blank note and started writing. Not a letter, not a speech, just thoughts, memories, truths I hadn't said out loud. Things like, you are not selfish for leaving a table where you only ever fed crumbs. You are not cruel for refusing to shrink so others can feel tall. You are not broken just because they didn't know how to love you right. I didn't send it to anyone, but it felt like the right thing to do. A few months later, I heard from Mom again. A postcard this time, just a picture of the old house with a note on the back. The holidays weren't the same without you. Hope you're doing well. I didn't reply, because sometimes healing isn't about reuniting. It's about rebuilding with better tools, stronger materials, and the unwavering belief that you deserve to exist fully, loudly, unapologetically. So no, I never went back.